That's fine. All right. So, did everybody get an agenda? I kinda want you to just take a look at it. I don't have, I looked at previous agendas and we've gone through all of book one and most of book two, New Learnings. I kind of, did them in segments. So if there's anything on book two, like I'm not gonna be teaching any more new lessons. So there's an opportunity on the second bullet there for any questions in book two. Like I don't have a list of things that I'm gonna teach. What I wanted to do was develop a coding cheat sheet because a lot of people have been asking about something to just bring our information together for the coding. So I thought the most powerful way to do that is to go through each lesson, and for us to develop that together, rather than me just hand you something. So we're gonna spend a little time there, but it should all kind of make sense, and it will solidify what you know and what you're still not sure about. So the way that we're gonna do that, is I photocopied from the front of the curriculum of book one and the front of the curriculum in book two. And then I have, did I forget to photocopy it? I did.
Do you want me to take it?
I can print it out and just have you grab it, but take one of these each. I shut that down before I printed it out. I'll have you go grab it. Okay, if somebody doesn't mind, this is what it's gonna look like, Julie.
Okay.
It's gonna just say lesson. And then coding, and it's gonna go
Okay.
from 1 to 30,
Okay.
35.
And did you need copies of it?
Nope, I'm
Are you
printing
gonna
enough,
print
I'm just
enough?
making
Okay.
like 5 copies, so you'll just need to grab it. Sorry. Coming on tape. Being unprepared. Does that sound like a beneficial use of our time?
Very much,
Yes, it
yeah. I
does.
think
Okay.
so. I just came up
Because
on
it's kind
one.
of putting it all together,
Mhm.
because we're so disjointed, because it seems as though it's going very fast.
Right.
And
Well, and some of you are not teaching the lessons in sequence.
Mhm.
You guys are. But that makes it difficult for someone who like has to hear from me what I've taught. Oh, I got to these 2 lessons and you missed that presentation. So I might tell you that, but this will kind of walk it through step by step, which is what you would be doing if you had just your class and not the sharing of, and you're also fragmented too.
Because we alternate.
'Cause you're sharing,
So I'm not
yeah.
always teaching that class.
Right.
And so if I don't really read through it,
Right.
and I'm still, sure, because you learn so much when you teach it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
and when you just read
it's
about it.
so the truth.
It's-
When you
it
just
is.
read it, you think, yeah, I know this.
Yeah. But
That's the whole
I'm not-
pinnacle of the practicum in the year, you know, like we could have easily given you guys like an assessment at the end of the workshop and had you do like practices with the
Right.
teachers, but you truly don't get it and you don't even know what you don't know until
Yeah.
you start to work through it.
Mhm.
So that's the whole point there. So when she comes, it's gonna say lesson number, and then it's gonna say coding. And then it's just, I just took like lesson 1 and then I just have a line to, and there's gonna be some things that aren't, there's nothing new. Consonants, there's not gonna be anything new. So we're just gonna walk through each of the steps in sequence, and then we're gonna establish whether there's a coding that you'll be teaching there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And to support myself, what I'm gonna do is get the IRD, which is the keyword sound reading deck, because that's where the codes are visually present for the kids and for yourself if you forget something.
Do you have a Kleenex in here? I'll put
Toilet
one on
paper.
that one. That's fine.
also on the agenda, I just have, I found some things that I knew I had, I just really haven't poked around to look for them, but one of them is like a glossary of terms.
Mhm.
Just the verbiage that we use, it's just like a little mini dictionary of like all the things that, the linguistic language that we're using, so it's just another reference. I have resources of, sheets that you'll give to kids when it's appropriate in the curriculum to, just kind of note sheets for kids, and we'll walk through those. And, just more like tools, things for you that might, you know, be good references when you have a question.
The only other thing that's not on here, and
Mhm.
it doesn't have to necessarily be tonight,
Go
is
ahead.
the progress monitoring and what we should be doing monthly, quarterly, or
I would like to add that on there.
that would be helpful, so we
Yeah.
don't get into a bind again, cause I
Yeah.
wasn't clear.
And I'm sorry if I missed that in previous, did we cancel something? Because that should have been right when we needed it, and I'm feeling like I dropped the ball.
I
on
don't
that.
know, I don't know how we just, but we didn't know that we were supposed to be doing the progress monitoring
Okay,
every quarter.
okay,
So, and now I just wanna make sure how often we should be doing the spelling, the instant words, those types of things, so that we're doing the same quality almost that you are.
well, and some
So
things are
that-
just my own practices that I've established, there's nothing in
And
the
that's okay,
curriculum that
but
says you have to do this or that, I see gaps in the progress monitoring that they have.
But you're giving
Basically,
us
it's
the
just the
opportunity
50
to
words,
teach.
but I need more than that, so I want more than that to report about spelling progress and reading and spelling instant words, basically.
I just wanna make sure that the children aren't being compromised because they have us as a teacher versus you. So
Yeah.
I wanna make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and
Totally, you
Yeah.
guys are. The power in progress monitoring is for yourself and for the kids to just be able to say, this is why we're doing what we're doing. You know, and you wanna do that frequent enough that you know that they're making progress. And if they're not, we need to problem solve that as a team, you know, as to what's going on. So, was that a little bit of a nightmare there?
You ran out of paper and there's just it just seems to run over, like everyone has a double sheet behind it, so I'm just, and it doesn't collate it, it's just kinda, you know, it's 6 of each
Okay,
page,
so
so I'm just collating.
1 to 22 so far. It's gonna come up to 35. Here's 23.
Can I go get a bouncy ball?
Yes.
Here's 1 to 22 for you.
And here's
Here's a
23.
23.
And I think there's,
I have a 1 to 22 here. These are blank.
for some reason I don't have another, unless I should be.
If we are missing 34 and 35, we could just add it
No,
on.
I have 34 and 35, it seems like we're short for 22 to 33 pages.
There's one here.
Oh, here it is.
there we go, I got a complete set.
I just need the last page
34,
for this.
35. Thank you. We're set over
And another
here.
34, 35. Okay.
And some scrap
We're
paper if
intelligent
you need
women, we can do this.
Good idea, Lauren, to do this.
Good, I hope it is. I mean, I just was like thinking, what are we gonna do to solve this? And I hope that this procedure, the way that we tackle it is a good one. Maybe you can help me believe that after we do it. Cause if there's a better way, I'd like to find it. But I do think I could have done this on my own time and just given it to you. But I don't always think that that's the best way, cause it's just one more thing to stick in somewhere. That if we don't work through it together, when you need it and you sit down, and we're not together to talk about it, then it really becomes a little bit meaningless, so. So I'm just cross-referencing lesson 1 with this, and I'm just gonna note, lesson 1 is P and B. And if you wanna, I guess we should go ahead and write that, what the feature is, and then there's no new coding. Okay, we're not coding yet. Now remember, Sarah gave you, lessons to do before we start in the curriculum, and that includes open and closed syllable and initial medial final. So we're not actually coding anything because we're not in a book yet, but you've exposed kids to that information just because this book doesn't necessarily do like a huge job with it. You know, we really wanted to pull those things out to get them prepped for it. So it
So
will
that
come
would
up.
be voicing, unvoicing and voicing?
Where is he? Not yet,
Okay.
cause they're not coding. T and D, nothing. 3 is, okay, here's your first vowel, so you've got short and long vowel I. So now you've got vowels and closed syllables coded with breves, and vowels and open accented syllables coded with macrons. Everybody clear on these things, cause these two things stick with you every prep for every coding. This is something you never skip. Okay, this is what we call the vowel theme song.
And what's the verbiage again for each
That's what, I
one of
think I
those?
get mixed
Yeah.
up on my verbiage, I think it has to be
It has
just
to
exactly.
be, it has to be that concept card, because that is what really, those cards are what's coming together for me,
We
because
need
I
to
have to
make sure.
practice them
What concept cards?
constantly,
So if you
constantly,
have,
because it's now, I've got the theme song finally in my head, but it's because I finally realized that I had to study this every.
So Sarah talked a little bit about concept cards, and we didn't really build them
I
in
have-
training, and we probably should
And that we
have.
should,
But
yeah,
like,
they are.
these are from my first training, initial, medial, final. So just things that you wanna remember to remind kids, your verbiage, because it gets cryptic pretty fast, right? So you can do this almost like a reading deck, but it's like concept
that,
cards.
yeah.
When you learn something new, you sort of just tack it somewhere. So that you don't always have to keep reminding, do you remember when we learned this? And it's just, you can do this in the beginning when you're training them to think that way, initial, medial, final. A says when it's by itself. Has to do with contractions. Possession, belonging to. The final S says z.
See, even that final. I
After
gotta
a
remember
voiced
final
sound.
S, okay.
Now these are old, so there's probably some mistakes on here. I have a much greater understanding than I did then. But N before a K says So special situations. Syllable. So when you're doing the
Okay.
whole cryptic piece and spelling.
Mhm.
Voiced, unvoiced, vowel, consonant. You're just teaching the kids the abbreviations and the
Right.
codes.
And the capital C is what, closed syllable?
Consonant.
Consonant. And
I
the
did
little
the
C.
same thing.
Yeah,
I mean, Lori
just
would have
lesson
to,
23.
Lori would have to, correct me every time, because I learned it in the class as closed syllable,
Okay.
or it's somewhere. in
These
my-
just
serve
didn't know
two
if it was-
purposes. They could support you, which is what they did my first few years. And they could support your kids. But once you get this down,
Mhm.
you fade this out of your own practice, and the kids just start to get it because you start to ask those pointed questions, and you just start to bring it to them. But this helps get you there, and I really kind of forgot that piece of how much I needed to keep in my head. That now it's there and it's so internal to me that I don't realize that it's not. You have to build that. And so this is a process for building that. This is a breve. Macron. Here it is. Vowel and a closed syllable is short, coded with a breve.
Yeah, I need to make these cards.
And Ellen
So-
fusses at me because she says it's Brad.
I can send you with
That's because
these
of her music background.
if you want to just
Yeah.
copy them and then
Yeah.
bring them back next time.
Oh,
I
that
pulled
would be
these out
great.
of my
Oh,
archives,
nice.
going, oh, I do have
Yeah,
concept cards.
it would help me just
So
to
a vowel
make
and a
my own
closed
set. That would be
syllable.
awesome.
But then when you're starting to
Makes
teach
a
it,
vowel sound.
you have it there, and you use it, and
Mhm.
pretty soon,
See, I even have multiples
Right.
here.
That's it.
I just
That's
got
good.
to this last week.
Mhm.
A
It's-
vowel and an open accented syllable is long, coded with a macron. And if you keep your language consistent, you can be writing this and the kids will regurgitate it, right?
Right,
If you change your lingo all the time, they're gonna not know which
right.
one they want.
And it is breathe, right? You said that
It is
Ellen.
Brave. She says
Open.
Brev.
That, I say
don't know.
breathe, and the kids have learned that they say breath
Mhm.
with Ellen, and they say breathe with
So,
me.
Give
what
to
is it?
linguists the class.
Yeah.
I say brief.
Okay.
I think it's both in the dictionary.
We looked it up, both Ellen and I did, and Ellen was trying to show me that breath came before breathe, but they were both there.
They're
so,
both there.
yeah.
Okay.
So whatever's gonna flow out of your mouth,
Breathe.
go
I
with
say
it.
tomatoes.
What's that?
I say tomato.
Oh,
I
yeah,
say
right.
tomato.
Exactly.
But I think it also teaches flexibility, I think it's good.
Yeah. base word and suffix, twin consonants, one is silent, crossed out. So some of this will come up in our review here. Accent. A says A after a W. When you have a WA, it says A. C before an AO. I hadn't taught you yet when I built this deck. Voice sound before an S makes the S say Z. Contractions made by putting two words together and leaving out a letter. An apostrophe is used in place of the missing letters.
Okay.
Final SS says S. That comes up after you teach them the Z sound.
Right.
Then they start to think if it's voiced or unvoiced, and if it's twins, it's always going to be the soft S sound.
Right.
Here's our lesson, not today, but the piggyback on that today, syllable division. This is just a syllable division pattern. When you have two VCCV pattern, you divide between the two consonants.
And so, are they taught with the accent on the second syllable first and then on the first?
This one's first. We've already taught this.
Okay.
You're on the
Remember that.
second one now, because
Mhm.
they're that far in the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
This is more common, and I also have a resource today to show you the syllable division patterns. Final stable syllables, so that's your consonant LE pattern.
Okay.
But it's also more than that. A final stable syllable is a group of letters that regularly appears in the final position of a word. The letters make up a syllable in the word. The pronunciation is stable. So final, end of the word, stable, always sounds the same. Syllable, it's a syllable in and of itself. So that's why we can bracket it. And
And is
that
that-
becomes our division point.
Is that like LE, or is
That's
that,
what I was thinking.
is that final state?
The most common are the consonant LEs. So puzzle, rifle, middle. So the consonant and then LE is one pattern. But here you've got short vowel here, long vowel here. So you'll get into that in book 3, I believe. So consonant LE, bowl, coal, dole, full, soul, goal, pole, toll, soul. And there's a whole deck in your reading deck for that. But also, TION, in my old curriculum was considered a final stable syllable, shun.
Now is it a suffix, or what is it?
I think it's still,
Shouldn't be suffix.
I think they're calling it a final stable syllable, still. It's not in book 3 yet. Book 3 final stable syllables are the consonant LEs. Book 4. They're considering it a final stable syllable. TION, SION. And then there's, I have not looked into 5 and 6, but in my old curriculum, if they follow that same pattern, would be things like CIOUS, like precious, things like that. So what happens is once you teach these as this chunk, you can look for it and then bracket it. It almost gets treated like a suffix, except it's not, because you're not taking it off and having a base word.
And it doesn't necessarily change the meaning either.
Right,
so-
it's just a part of the word, but it's predictable enough that we can say it's gonna divide here, it's gonna divide here. And then we can continue to code and say, well, this leaves a closed syllable. This is an open syllable, that's why it says I. So that's where that's going. I feel like I'm jumping around a lot. Am I jumping around?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
It's only because we're
Yeah, you're following
asking
us.
questions.
I know. It's amazing, we were only here.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to that. And so concept cards, you know, I can go through these. I'd actually like to have you take them and
You
then
bet.
bring them back next
You
time.
bet.
And then,
I wonder if we
some
could
of the
give those
stuff,
to somebody to put into the computer so that you could
scan them.
scan them.
We could totally scan them.
Scan them and then put both sides, and then we could just, you know, have our own sets without having to redo what you've already done.
That's a good point. And some stuff like that I give you tonight is on there, like the spelling rules. I made up these little things, I gave you copies of that. But I think scanning's a good idea too. So, and I have multiple copies of things, so I kinda need to sort through them. Can I scan them and get them to you?
You bet,
Is that all right?
absolutely.
Alright, I think that's a great idea. And let me write that down as my to-do list, 'cause sometimes when the hour's over, I'm done. And then, whatever I
You
need
need
to
to.
do, let me grab this pencil. Okay, so we're gonna scan concept cards. Okay. So we're back on, here, so this is open and closed syllables. So this is where, the first time that they're exercising that, into a coding practice. And so the only thing they're coding at this point is words like it, id, pid. They only have these letters, but you're really focusing them to look at that I. That's what they're gonna start to, put the visual codes on. 4 is F and V, it's nothing. 5 is, your second vowel right away, ah. And not the open A, but the unaccented A. That stands by itself and says They're not gonna give you anything that has an open A. I believe they just do the I because of the commonality of the word it. It just fits in there. And then the uppercase I by itself, because it's a word. It's an open syllable word that's very common, and they have to know that. So again, you're gonna be doing, this is gonna fit in to that.
Mhm.
The new piece is that when it's by itself. 6 is M and N, nothing. You're just still gonna reinforce these things. 7, W and H, nothing. 8, short vowel E and long vowel E. So you can be sure they're gonna have words like we and he, because you've just taught W and H the day before or 2 days before. So it's important that they can look at it and say, oh wow, it's not a breathe because there's no consonant after it. So that's really the first time in the context of a word that you're using the open syllable. So again, open and closed syllables, and that's always getting strengthened. Number 9 is the TH sounds. There's 2 of them, unvoiced and voiced. So when we have a voiced sound, we're putting that line through it. There was a concept card that had that line, voiced sound, and the concept card looks like that.
Okay.
When you can feel it and if they need a review of how to check for voice. There's no rule that goes with that, it's just a test kind of thing.
Do
It's
I
not
have
like
to underline it too as a consonant diagram?
Oh yes, I'm sorry, yes. Underlining, thank you. That is your first consonant digraph.
Right.
And so, you would at this time build a concept card or put it into your deck that you're using. You're not gonna introduce something like that until they see it. So, that might be a good opportunity at this time to say, wow, this is our first time we're learning, consonant digraph. I'm gonna underline that. It's 2 consonants that come together to make 1 consonant sound. And I would write that verbiage on the back of my card and I would put these codes. So now, after this lesson, when they go to code and read, you're gonna do your vowel theme song. You're gonna say A says O and it's by itself if you're working in sentences, and you're gonna say, remember, we're starting to learn some consonant digraphs. I don't list them all underneath there. At this point, there's only 1. But I do have things like a smart chart. Here's, once we start learning more of them, I don't wanna list NG, TH, CK.
Right.
I wanna have a reference in the classroom somewhere, but I also want them to be able to start to recognize that mentally on their own. So, can I erase this and start over? Yeah, please interrupt me if I know there's something I'm overlooking. So we're up to 10, K and G, nothing. 11, short vowel O and long vowel O. So it's not new, but it's gonna be important. 12 is when you teach the new consonant digraph NG, and then the special situation N before a K. This has a lot of muddy water here because you're gonna wanna underline it. But you don't. This is the only thing that's making the sound, triggered by the K. That's what makes it a situation. A situation doesn't fit neatly into a category. It's one of those things where, well, N says that when it's before a K, only then. So we're not underlining it and putting it in this category because the K still makes it sound, sync. It doesn't meld into that NG sound. It still keeps its sound. This just takes on that NG sound before the K. So we're doing N, oop. That's the code. Does that make sense? So you're underlining consonant digraph and then you're doing this before the K. And you're gonna wanna have some discussion with kids about that being a special situation. And the reasoning is that in the word sync, this still has a sound. It doesn't come in, it doesn't get wrapped up into that. It's just this, it's a special situation. And they actually start to like things like that. It's like kinda cool, they remember things like that. Does that explanation make sense? Okay. And this makes me think of the alignment of the cards. Does everybody know now
Yes.
what goes together?
It goes with the N, not the
King.
N.
This goes with the N,
Right, it doesn't go there.
right? Nest, sync, because this is the letter that's making that sound. Okay. And did everybody get that scan of what goes together? Okay, was that helpful? Okay, good. The letter U, just short U. Again, closed syllable, you're gonna reinforce that. 14 is your first suffix, ing. Now, they're gonna see this, and you're gonna probably want to, after you teach them about a suffix and that we box it, and the reason why is because we're left with a base word, if we erase it. Whether it happens in that lesson or not, do a word like this.
Yeah.
And code it both ways. And ask them which one is right. And they should be able to reason that out, or you want to help them reason that out. You want to really reinforce the first time you teach a suffix that if you erase it, you have a word. So let's do that test here. Is that a word? No. So then they have to go back and do this. This is a great example of that. So this could be a good concept card opportunity. Base word plus suffix, called a derivative. You could take the suffix away and be left with a word. And so you box ing. Okay, the end of book 1 is ends. And at this point, it's not voiced S.
Right.
And so there's no special coding. For the S, you will come upon twin consonants. You may have done that
That
before.
with the F, I think.
That might have been one of the lessons that Sarah stockpiles in front.
Are you thinking
Well,
about
that's
lesson
because of
4
F,
or the?
when you do
F
FIB,
is
you
too,
get
I'm pretty
twin
sure.
consonants like top or
Right,
tip or
so it came out.
puppy.
comes up in the F,
Cause I remember the
okay,
F.
just another place to resurface
To
it.
adjacent consonants. Yeah. Page 32, the acronym.
So that's up here somewhere, not to be confused with consonant digraph. Okay, it's still two consonants, but these are twins, one is silent, cross it out. These come together and make one sound,
Okay.
okay? And kids, so that's all of book one coding. Everybody good with that? Any questions before we go on to two? Okay, I'm gonna just start.
You know, this is good with the coding. I'm wondering if another time we might wanna go through and look at all the prep for spelling, because that's why I think I'm not knowing for sure what I'm supposed to be doing on all things.
The prep for spelling, I think that the book's done a pretty good job.
So it's good.
They miss a couple things when it's something that feels like you need to have taught them.
Yeah.
You really do, when you're prepping for your lesson, need to look ahead and be like, wow, that's the first time that's coming up. And if it is, you're gonna wanna do more than just write down the little like, equation per se. You know, you might wanna say, let's take a look and figure out what that means. When you hear k before an E or an I, you're gonna spell it with a K. Let me give you some of those examples, just so that you're kinda doing like a mini, discovery piece to that. So we're on 16, wow, that was fast. 16 is L and R, nothing special. 17 is your voiced S and then suffix S. So the voiced S, you're putting the voice in it and it comes after a voiced sound. And then suffix S, that can sound like Z. Follows the same principle. So here's a good example: pins and hats. Suffix S, breathe. Suffix S, breathe. Here, you check the letter right before it is voiced, so this is voiced. Unvoiced, unvoiced. Your mouth kind of knows what to do with this, and I don't overdo it with forcing kids to put the voice on the S or not. If they're struggling, I would go back and teach them that. But for the most part, it's your voice just does it anyway.
Right.
It also comes into play for spelling. If they hear Z, they've got to know that it's an option for an S. If you say this is a suffix and a base word, the word is pins, you know, they have to think, is it a Z or an S? But if it's a suffix, you know, then they're gonna select the S. Just so that they're aware that the S suffix can make both sounds. 18 is your A after a W. So there's your new special situation. We code it with 2 dots.
Do you give them the name of that?
What is the name?
I do not.
Okay.
It's Sedilia, I think.
No, I think it's diaries.
Diaresis? Yeah. Okay, Sedilia is the S curve on the side.
Right. I
Yeah.
just realized that today. Okay.
I mean, you could, and some people really like that technical language. I like when the kids say, "Oh, it looks like 2 eyes." I think they remember it, and they'll just do that.
Okay.
But if you want to do that, I mean, there's nothing that says you can't. It maybe depends on your level of kids too. If I had 4th graders, and I really wanted to force that whole like language, the study of language and science of language and science of reading, I would. But when I'm doing 2nd graders,
Yeah.
who can barely pronounce words like that, I'm like, 2 eyes. So, as you can see here, when you go through your linkage and they learn this, they're seeing that coding. And they're gonna see it every day. So, if you don't remember, you know, you could be paying attention during the presentation of the reading deck too, and training yourself that way, because it's all there. Which is the power of this reading deck too, is that they don't have to remember all these things.
So when you do that, do you say the letter, you say A when you're doing the sound? Because that's the key word, and then ah.
I say watch ah.
But when you're doing the letter, you have to say A, and then you go watch ah, right?
Right, but they're two separate practices, right? The reading deck, you just name the letter, the first one.
Uh-huh.
But then when you get to keywords and sounds, what's gonna be in front of this is apple, ah, watch, ah. Those are the two things that A can say.
Then when you do the part before you're writing it, will it go back
The
and
new
have
learning
the letter
piece,
name?
then you're doing the A, the letter A,
But you have to
watch
say-
off,
Uh-huh.
right, is that what she's saying?
A, watch, ah, A, watch, ah, yeah.
And that's okay, that's not confusing, because it's the letter name, and then.
Yep. You're teaching them that special situation, you're making it clear to them that
Mhm.
it's a special situation only when it's after a W. Apple, ah, watch, ah, right there.
So your concept card could say, if you have an A after a W, you code it with 2 dots, and you say ah. What is it?
Concept
Verb
cards are
together.
more like what it sounds like when you read it and what you'll hear to spell it. The coding is like the least important part of all this. It's a means to an end, and it's gonna fade. The coding is what we're doing to take away that bad habit of guess and go, look at the first few letters and make a guess.
Right.
You know, it's really slowing them down to look at our language as parts and pieces. But the codes have to fade, because once they leave our instruction, that's it. Like, they're not gonna really, unless they read a dictionary every day, the codes are the means to an end. What we're really wanting to stick with them, that they have to maintain, is what it sounds like and how it's spelled.
Does it get paired with the short O then? The ah?
No, because the O,
Ah,
it gets paired with the A. It's the option for the A,
okay,
even though it sounds like O.
right, I'm
Except in
thinking,
the spelling deck, right?
doesn't it?
When you say in the
Right.
spelling deck, you say ah.
Right, it's the reverse for spelling.
Mhm.
So for
Then they're
reading,
putting O.
if you think about reading in the reading deck, when they see the letter A,
Right.
what you want them to come to memory is, I know it says apple, ah, and it says watch, ah, when it's after a W. That's what you're building.
Right.
When you're doing the spelling deck, green cards, you hear ah, what are your choices? Oh, first is octopus, and I
Okay.
also know that it's A after a W.
Okay, so it does.
So that's in the spelling. Think, you have to kind of piece out your visual and your auditory of what you want them to connect with. And that's kind of hard to get straight at first. But I think that the cards support you
Yep.
with that, because the green card with the O has the A
Right.
next to it. So if
With
you
the
use the
lesson.
tools to support until it clicks for you,
Mhm.
it'll click.
Trust it, right?
Trust it.
That's the hard part.
Yeah. And you know what, you'll have a revelation like 2 years down the road, you'll be like, oh my god, I finally get that. Like, it took me years to figure out certain things, I just did it because someone told me to. I'm like, this is why, and when the kids would ask questions, I'd be like, because my friend Sarah told me to. And then they would help me think things through, the kids did, so don't feel you have to have it all dialed in. So, the C that says k and s, so this is a K back and the sedilia, which is the S curve. This is a pretty weighty one, because you're building that whole, it says k before an A, an O, a U, or any consonant. They think this is the letter C sometimes, so,
That is confusing.
so you have to give them examples like clap and crisp and crust. So you're showing them it's a consonant.
Okay.
It tends to be an L or an R a lot. And then C says S before an E, an I, or a Y. And your discovery does that. Your discovery builds that when you put the words out auditorily and then visually. It builds this little list, and then you just kind of pull it out as the rule. You know, they figure it out, and then, okay, now that we figured it out, here's the rule, and this is what it looks like. And so it ends up on your chart. And it's always good to know, to have these things visually somewhere in the classroom for yourself and for the kids, because they learn so much so fast that they need the support of that. There's nothing wrong with that. They don't need to remember all this immediately. It's not integrated enough yet for you to quiz them and be like, what letters does C say? It's not fair to them.
Mhm.
If you think about how much you're ingesting at one time, it's,
Right.
we really just want them to know how to employ the rule. We don't need them to prove that they've got it yet.
Wait, Lori, I have a confusion in my learning. So
Okay?
you spell with a C when it's followed by A-O-U or any other consonant, I thought. But it's any other consonant blend. So
Inside of
A-O-U,
Or any
and that
consonant.
large C, I thought it was, or any consonant.
Mhm.
It is.
But then
That
you were
makes
just
it
doing crisp and clap.
So the reason that the C says k and not s is because of the R,
Because of consonant.
Or any other consonant. Okay, so okay.
which makes a blend
Okay.
when you put them together.
You see,
Is that what you were thinking?
right? I
Yeah.
was doing a blend and I was
Mhm.
going, wait, that doesn't make sense.
This book doesn't do too much in terms of talking about blends.
Mhm.
It treats them as individual sounds
Mhm.
that have to be spoken, unless we code them together. Then it's a digraph, and then, but everything else, if it's there, it's gotta have a sound. We don't really teach them as those chunks
Mhm.
that some programs do, because we want them to attend to the individual parts and pieces
I like that, compared to
for
those.
spelling purposes too.
And that's what I do basically.
Right, and it's not wrong, but I can understand the concept of keeping it, every letter has a sound. When you're reading a word, you must sound out get it all in there. Alright. Now you have your next suffixes, less and ness. So, you're boxing. You're teaching about meaning, good opportunity to talk about the language piece, if you want to stop and do sentences. There's nothing in the book that has you kind of building like a little note sheet as you learn suffixes, so I give kids this and we use it as like a bookmarker in their code and read book. So you're gonna have a copy of this. And they categorize it as a vowel or a consonant suffix, and then I have them write the meaning of it. Just another place that they can refer to, because they'll forget as they learn more and more, and there's so many suffixes in the language. Um, 21 is consonant digraph CK, so your second consonant digraph, you underline it, cross out the C. The K owns the sound. We only hear the K. Kids will start to figure out that we cross out letters that don't make a sound. Just cross them out. Vowel digraph EE. If you think about what it sounds like, it's a vowel team, vowel digraph. We only hear one of them, and it makes its long sound.
So do you call it a vowel digraph, or do you just call it a digraph?
I call it a vowel digraph.
Okay, because the book doesn't.
I do.
Okay, yeah, and I thought that made good sense, it should be.
The book doesn't, huh?
When do they do vowel team?
I don't think
They don't.
Oh,
this is.
because I remember just.
Think of, vowel digraphs and diphthongs comprising the category of vowel teams. So vowel digraphs and diphthongs. For syllable identification purposes, it's one of the 6 syllable types, which contain both of these. These are different than these. These come together and make one sound. These come together and make an unusual sound. So your mouth kind of comes into 2 different formations. Oi, ow. So it's not just one sound.
Mhm.
And there's only, the handful of those. O-I and O-Y, O-U and O-W. Everything else is vowel digraphs. So that whole principle of, two vowels come together, first one,
Two vowels go walking, and the first one
does the talking.
okay.
Two
It's
vowels
only
go
about
walking.
60% efficient, so we stay away from
Or
that.
even
Okay.
50 is,
Yeah, it's not efficient enough for us to reinforce when kids are, it makes sense for some situations, and I know why some teachers teach it, but we really wanna stay away from things that are sometimes maybe. We wanna, as much as we can, just say, oh, it's a vowel digraph, they come together and make one sound. What is that sound? You know,
Is there anything that helps them know you cross out the second one? Cause a lot of the others were crossing out the first one.
it doesn't matter. I don't make an issue out of that. I tell them if they wanna do that, that's fine. Visually for me, like it just makes sense for me to do like that end one. That's just the habit I get in, but I don't care if they cross out the first one or the second one. It doesn't matter.
Does it make a difference later if it's like EA, cause when you cross out the second one?
Well, they just have to know which letter they cross out.
Yeah.
They keep the one that makes the sound. But when they're the same, it doesn't matter. And if they, whatever, if they're so hung up on that, I'm not gonna, I don't care. As long as they understand what it says and how to spell it, that's all I'm going for. Okay. Next, we're on 23, we have a consonant digraph CH, underline it, and J, just a consonant. Trigraph TCH. First time you're teaching a trigraph, it's 3 letters that come together. So you're underlining all 3. The one we don't hear is the T. We're crossing it out.
Lori, I had a question. Just today I was doing 23, and on the spelling, I didn't understand what consonant, final ch. So if there's a consonant and then ch, if it helps you.
Yep. If you hear a consonant sound and then a final ch, you are going to spell that with a CH, like in the word bench. Okay.
Okay.
We
I
would
can-
not spell bench BENTCH because this spelling is for after a short vowel.
Okay.
So if they hear ch consonant sound, they're gonna select this spelling.
Okay.
So this isn't right. And every word in that practice, lunch, pinch, there's only 2. They're not trying to trick them and make them differentiate at this point,
Right.
but that's why it's in there.
Okay.
That consonant makes you say the CH sound. You're gonna do TCH,
Tomorrow, I think.
yeah, probably 25. And that's when you're gonna teach after a short vowel, like in match or pitch. There's no consonant sound in there.
Okay.
The third place this whole thing goes is with vowel teams. So this is after a short vowel, this longer spelling. This is a consonant, then the shorter spelling. If you've got a vowel team like OO, like in pooch, shorter spelling.
Okay.
So this really only goes back to just a short vowel, longer spelling with a short vowel.
Okay.
That's kind of how I categorize that. And it follows the same kind of principle like CK does.
Okay.
Think of truck and luck and lock and pack. After the short vowel, we're doing the CK. But if we have bank, this actually came up in your question.
Yeah.
If it's a consonant, it's just a K.
Okay.
If it's look, if it's a vowel team, it's just a K.
Okay.
So,
How do you know?
short
Short
vowel
vowel?
sound, final position is CK. Ooh, that should be a. If you have a short vowel in the final position, ch, it's gonna be a TCH. It also applies to DGE. So if you have a short vowel and a j sound at the end, it's going to be DGE. another trigraph that you'll get down the road, like in badge or fudge or sludge. So I call this, I don't think the book does it, but I call it longer, stronger spelling after a short vowel.
Oh, okay.
And I'll just be like, stronger, longer, you know, because CK is longer than just K. TCH is longer than just CH. DGE is longer than just GE.
I was going back to the C versus the CK and the look was your example.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a short vowel digraph then?
Nope, it's just a vowel team.
And it's after a vowel team?
So when you've got a vowel team or a consonant, you're going to choose the K. So bank, there's your consonant. Look, peak or peak. It's because there's not just a short vowel in front of it. Peak, pack. Longer, stronger, short vowel. So you'll build some like differentiation activities around that. Once you see them tripping up and getting all confused, you'll stop the show and you'll be like, okay, we need to, just build an activity around that. Does that make sense? It will. It will.
Yeah.
If you can internalize the rule, you'll be able to develop a practice for them to apply it. If you understand it. You okay there? You just
Yeah, I
understand?
just need to stand.
Okay.
So do we teach later? Because I'm ready to do almost the CK, but they didn't teach the K, they just taught the CK first.
Yep, that builds slowly.
Okay.
And I wouldn't do one of those differentiation activities for a while. Right now, when it's introduced as a new learning in a lesson, it's really for reading and some spelling exposure practice. But when they've read it for a while and they know how to read it, but they're tripping up on the spelling and have had enough exposure to it, you could say, we're going to just do a spelling lesson on when to do CK and when to just do K. And make that your focus for the day. But they don't have to get it in that lesson. Spelling's going to lag behind. That's why the prep is important, to make them successful. Because if you're expecting them to remember everything the way that we do for reading, spelling's just harder. It's just more analytical. They have way much more to think about. 25 is suffix FUL. You'll bring this back when you teach final stable syllable, FLE. Later in book 3. So think of like cupful or ruffle. They sound alike. So you'll find yourself wanting to kind of talk about that. You don't need to mark that down now. It won't come up in your book. So we're boxing suffix FUL. The vowel teams for OO. I find that kids confuse this. There's no rule that says which one you're choosing. They just have to know if it sounds right. If they have no idea what the word is, you just need to tell them. It's the oo sound. Shampoo or shampoo, which sounds right. And usually they get it. But there's no rule that says, well, you use this one in this situation, this one in that situation. This says this says ooh. They will get this confused when you do the instant spelling deck. When you say they're going to want to say you. So you have to force the vowel digraph OO and then ooh vowel digraph OO to hear it. My kids always confuse that. Consonant digraph SH, we underline it. That one's fairly common. They've known that for a long time. Okay, syllable division comes for the first time in lesson 28. And the first pattern that you're going to teach, and you're going to teach it for a long time, is the VCCB pattern. Okay. Has anyone gotten to teach this part yet?
Next week, I bet.
Okay. And I think I modeled that last time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So what I did is I found these things that I made up a while ago. Because you need to force the steps for syllable division, okay? And so in order for you to do that, you need to make sure you have the steps for syllable division down. Because they'll want to immediately go and throw breves and macrons up there. Which is working backwards because we're going to get to the point where it's not always going to be this pattern. And they have to analyze according to each individual syllable. So they have to just trust you that the whole process is for a purpose. And you have to trust yourself. Because they will go ahead and do this. And it's not wrong, but it's going to shoot you in the end. They'll do that, and they'll do that, and then they'll do that, and they'll do that. And that was completely backwards. But it's right. And if you don't watch them, they will do that. And you'll look at it and you'll be like, that's right. Read that word. Great. But when they get to words like, they'll start doing this, and they can't. That has to be the analytical piece down the road when they look at their choices and start to make decisions about how to break it down. So it's a payoff that comes way later, and you're building just that routine. You know, I try to make analogies like, you know, when you go to ski, like, what do you have to do first? You have to put your skis on. Like, if you try to do it backwards, you're going to hurt yourself, you know. Just force them to do it because you're really developing a thought process. So that's super important. Top codes is what I call this. So breves, macrons, accent and unaccent is last. But they're used to doing it first because they've only done one syllable words. So you bring them back to easy coding. And I made a sheet for you. And you guys could, if you want, this is pretty helpful. I think that the kids use this, you know, they use it as a bookmark, and you can, you know, kind of cue them that way. But I just made you like a little template of those steps, and you can manipulate this. I can send it to you electronically if you want to make different fonts or whatever. But the piece that I included was what easy coding includes, like all these little things. Suffixes. Look for them first. I had a child today. I think Lynn was here. Yeah, it was 3rd grade. It was Henry. He looked at this and he went VCV. He even did this. I think he had VCCV. He was just so rote about the whole thing. So I put it up on the board and I said, look at how much easier we can make our lives. Easy coding. Now all we have is the base word. We don't have to do all that. So prove to them that, you know, pulling a suffix immediately is what's making life easy for them. So twin consonants is easy coding. Consonant and vowel digraphs and trigraphs. If you can pick those up and start to piece them, do that. The coding of the C is always easy coding. Special situations are always easy coding. The final E being silent. Okay, they're going to want to do that, but I would just wait because there are situations in which it's not a vowel consonant E, but the E is silent at the end. They can cross that out. And then final stable syllables when you get to them. So just things that, like, when they first look at it, oh, get that, but not breves and macrons. If you think of they have to analyze the syllable, they have to make it easy to do so first. And then they draw their line from vowel to vowel. So let me do a word that has easy coding. Easy coding. I don't see any suffixes. And I'll do this. I'll just talk out loud. I'll be like, oh, I don't see any suffixes. I don't see any twin consonants. K-backs. Ooh, let me see. I have some C's. I have to decide if they're K-backs or S-curves. Well, there's an O, so I know that's a K. And there's a T, so I know that that's a K. And then you can kind of just talk them through any consonant digraphs, any vowel digraphs. Special situations, NK, WA, E's at the end, no. And you know what they should be picking up, so you're kind of like thinking out loud for them. Okay, step 1, done. Now I'm going to draw my line from vowel to vowel. I'm going to label them. Vowel, N is a consonant, T is a consonant, A is a vowel. And I'm doing all that regurgitation out loud the first few times they do this. You wanna force them to think and hear you and go slow, because they'll speed through it and miss a lot, and then it's really hard to clean up. And then the rule is to divide between the two consonants. Finally, I can do my top codes. And I'm saying all that, you know, like that has to come at the end, and then accent on accent. So, it's really important that you spend time with this. Second graders struggle if you get this far with second graders. You could take days doing this. I think we're at this point with our third graders where we have taught this. The last lesson was the shift. So convict, convict, and they're struggling with reading it out loud correctly. So I don't care if we spend 3-4 days on this. It's fine. You know, you don't wanna go too fast on something like this. If it's consonant digraph SH and somebody's having a hard time articulating it, I'm gonna keep going, you know, but this is something that has so much embedded within it. It's everything you've taught about coding so far, so it's worth going slow. So you'll spend some time there. And then, can I erase all this? Okay, so suffix ed has 3 different kinds of codes. We're up to 29. It says ed, d, ent. And your lesson has the conditions for that, but that's what the codes look like. That's 29 and 30 are the 3 sounds of ED. 31 is when you're starting to introduce silent E syllables, A consonant E and I consonant E. You're adding onto your vowel theme song now for the first time. Closed syllables, open syllables, silent E. In a vowel consonant E syllable, the E is silent, cross it out. The vowel is long, code it with a macron. So when you have your words,
And that's so important to do a concept card for that, because I can't remember it.
what to say.
What do you say again?
Yeah.
In a vowel consonant E syllable, the E is silent, cross it out. The vowel is long, code it with a macron.
So it's like the vowel theme song.
And this
You just
becomes a
have to know
1,
it.
2, 3 sequence. From this point on, you never want to skip a syllable type. Because at this point now, it's fair game. Silent E syllables can end up in 2-syllable words. So our third graders were coding 2-syllable words with a closed syllable and a silent E syllable. So they have to know that these are the 3 types they've learned so far. 3 out of 6, they're halfway there. 32 is the same thing except with the U consonant E and the O consonant E. So you're gonna reinforce the same vowel theme song. 33 is the syllable division pattern. You teach them that this is their first choice, but today we're learning that if it doesn't sound right, you can shift the accent. And there's a whole bunch of really good words in there. Intend. And then you reinforce that idea of accent. And it's really the first time that they're hearing vowels be lazy, is what I say. So it's the schwa sound. So convict. If you had to spell convict, it sounds like that, but it spells like this. And the reason is because it's unaccented. Unaccented makes everything lazy.
Okay.
It can. So when you're doing a spelling of this, which is what Lynn did today, when you're dictating this, you're not going to say convict. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to exaggerate it. The word is convict, but the first syllable is con. And you have to bring that out and show them that It's because of that accent, and that's why it's lazy, but I'm gonna tell you what you need to, spell it like. There's no other way they'd know. They're gonna spell what they hear if they're doing what you're telling them to do, which is what we want them to do. 34 is E consonant E. Not real common. There's a handful of one-syllable words, tends to be in more than one-syllable words, like these, theme, cream. Actually, cream is E-A. Can you spell C-R-E-M-E?
Only your Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, only a handful, but words like athlete, compete. And then 35 is your first presentation of prefixes. Like suffixes, we box them. They just come at the beginning of words. So we only box things that we can take away, have something left. Kids will want to start boxing consonant digraphs and things if you don't control that. So, if you guys will entertain me, or just go along with me for now, I would love if I could do the keywords and sounds, and then just pay attention as if you were a student at the codes. But it will help me to just like hear your sounds and stuff. So I'm gonna only go up to so it's everything that we just talked about. This is all of book 1 and 2, keywords and sounds. So pretend you're the students and just do that.
Pig,
Bat,
table,
dog,
igloo, fish,
violin,
apple,
mop,
nest,
Now, sing should be back there behind it,
Sing,
but these are in order.
Okay.
So you know I don't have them aligned, because they're just in order of presentation.
Wag,
Wag,
Everybody's doing the voice?
yeah.
Okay.
Hat,
elephant,
thumb,
Do this one again?
elephant,
Okay.
thumb,
mother, kite, gate, octopus, Don't we have to do the other that's
sink,
Now you know they don't line up. It's just when you're teaching it. That's why they're in this order, because I just pulled a new reading down.
umbrella,
socks,
zippers, nose, leaf,
rabbit,
wash,
cup,
cup,
city,
truck,
feet,
chair, jar,
match, moon, book,
shell, cake,
five,
rope,
mule,
I don't know what that is.
Athlete.
Athlete.
Oh, I'm doing that tomorrow.
So,
So, thank you.
Yeah. So, you may not have attended to the codes before this. You may have tried to just remember them all, but they are right there.
We never went that far in the class. That's the first time we've seen athlete.
Oh,
We didn't, I don't know how far we went, just a few. Yeah, then we
Okay.
were tested out.
okay. So, you can see where this is an opportunity for kids who are having trouble remembering the codes. You can say to them, pay attention to the cards. All the codes are there. Like, study that while you're doing it. Because they become rote. Kids can shut their eyes and do this. And they will. They'll, I have Jackson who's like, apple, umbrella, because he's getting the cue, the auditory cue from everybody else, and he's jumping in. But, and you'll see that, kids will do that, but they're missing that visual piece that's building into their memory, so don't allow them to do that. I mean, if they're solid on it and they're Jackson and in 4th grade and done with you, that's fine, but
We should spell sounds now.
we should spell sounds now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, because
Even trickier.
it's so hard, because
Okay.
you have to remember final position,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
You
Okay,
haven't had
we
them
can
all,
do that for
so-
book 1 and 2,
Okay.
alright?
I get up to lesson 12.
What time do I have? Besides
5:15.
Okay. So we'll try to wrap up within half an hour, and you need to leave a little sooner.
I need to go get that really loud voice that you heard downstairs.
Lizzie loves him. She asked me how he is.
He's tingling.
I think maybe they're kindred spirits.
I'm gonna give you guys these just because you're adults and you can handle them, but I usually use these.
Almost
We
got
can
it.
just
These are
write it
from,
out.
okay,
I
yep,
mean, I don't
totally
use
can.
paper.
Yep, if anybody wants one of these, or one of these, you may, whatever. I almost never use these with kids. Cause if we get mixed up on numbers, they don't know. It's just their start position and they should be able to go down, but it's been a nightmare for me, I haven't been able to. But it's in your Blackline Master for this purpose. And this is also another, you could use it if you're gonna force them to do cursive on the ISD, but I don't. I want them to automatically identify the letter and write it. Whatever's the quickest way for them is what I want. Okay. So is everybody ready? No? I'll use the 3rd grade. So I won't, do you want me to go in order? Would that be easier?
You mean
For
if
your
we
learning,
turn,
should I
if
go
we
in-
turn this around, you mean, and we,
So if you look back on, your order of presentation, maybe I should. Let me do that. But you're not always gonna do that with kids, because you don't want them to memorize. T, B, T, D, I, you know, they'll do that. After day 3, they'll tell you what's next. So, your job is to look and listen, echo, name it, then write. I struggled with that today with my 4th graders. I made a mess out of them because they were going P, T, E, consonant, E, consonant, E. They were talking at the same time they were writing, and they were totally screwing it up because they need to say it first and then write it.
Then write
Because you can catch their errors. If they have to erase things, or if they're confused, you can get them right there. So, echo, name it, then write it are 3 separate routines, 3 separate behaviors. So, P,
P.
and you need to name it. B,
B, B,
T,
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 D,
D, D,
I,
N,
I,
F.
F.
It will add on to final position FF. I don't know if they have that marked on your card.
They do.
Do they?
Wait,
One
no,
of them
you
does
added-
not.
no, you added it on the card.
Okay,
So-
S has it, F and L do not. But because of the floss rule that you're teaching, when you get to book 2, and you don't do this until you teach it. You add on to this, right? So after you've taught this is when you add on. It's not on the green cards, but I think it should be. V.
V.
I do wanna use the cards. And I wanna use a new deck, because I think there's things I'm forgetting. There's some in there. Okay. M.
M.
N.
N.
W.
W.
H.
E.
F. E.
Consonant digraph TH.
Z.
Consonant digraph TH.
Kids will want to put those together. They're two different sounds. Okay, here's what you need by the end of book 2. K, comma, C. Final position, C, K, comma, K.
Now, why does it have that line there for final position?
Final position, it's just a way to separate your initial medial choices and your final choices.
Okay.
So, F, final position, FF. It's just a
Why did
symbol.
they use the letter F, like the final position before? Was that-
Because it's gonna get kind of muddy with letters. It
Okay,
needs to be symbolic. I think that's why.
okay.
You can certainly try it and let me know how that goes. But I think it's because you don't want to muddy it up with more letters.
Okay.
You know? So this is like kite, your keyword. This is cup. This is truck. This does not have a keyword, but it's a word like bank or book. Okay? There's a consonant and a vowel team in front of it. And sometimes I'll do that to prove to kids why there's all these choices. But you certainly don't have to do that. G.
G.
Ah.
O, comma, A.
After a W. That's the way I write it. I do this small because it's not the W that's part of the sound. It's just the situation trigger. And so I kind of put it like, just as a little reminder, like a little side thing.
Consonant digraph NG, comma, N.
Now this might be another situation where you want to do that, but
Okay.
it's not NK.
Okay.
Okay? If you think this and sound the same,
No.
they don't.
No.
So it's only that makes the sound in this situation.
That may be the time I get it. That may be the one.
You have to put
I
things
didn't
that
teach this
sound the
lesson,
same together.
And I've
Well,
been
they
confused
can
on
start
it
putting
forever.
NG
It's amazing
before the
once you
K,
teach it,
'cause
you
they
have
hear
it.
the
That's so
sound.
nice.
Exactly,
Right.
right after you
Keep
teach
trying
it.
to get it
Right.
through my head.
So it's an opportunity to reinforce the situation again. It's good they do that.
It's hard, it's tricky.
Ah,
U.
S.
S.
S,
Comma. SS.
Final position, SS.
What about C?
did you do a C there too?
It's considered a red spelling in this curriculum.
Oh, okay.
So you don't put a C for city?
Not so sure I agree with it, but they're treating it as a red spelling.
And red spelling means
Irregular.
irregular, that's right.
Like an instant
Okay.
Like the word city.
Z,
Z.
comma, S. O.
O.
L.
L.
This is where I add final position LL. So here's your floss roll letters,
Oh,
F,
cool, yeah, I've missed
L,
that.
and S. I can't justify why it should only be the S. I wanna put these in as a
Sure,
reminder for
sure.
them, the floss roll.
R.
This will get confusing when you get to ER.
That's
You have to almost exaggerate and like make them look at you and go, It's, you have to make it sound different because they really do sound very similar. Like letter, rabbit,
Ruh.
I don't
Ruh.
really hear, it's
Ruh.
not ra.
It's a R. Cause you're getting ready to say ruh.
Right.
Ruh.
Right.
Ruh. Ruh.
E,
E.
first
E.
choice is vowel digraph E,
Mm.
comma, E consonant E, like in athlete, at the end of book 2. Final position, E, E, like in 3,
Oh,
okay? You'll learn, like, the final E is always silent if it's just one E. So if they need an E at the end, up to this point, they're gonna put an EE. When you teach them Y, like in penny, they'll have another choice.
don't you have to put an E there too, just a plain E, like if it's,
Open syllable at the end of lesson 59.
well, we had it with he.
We did, but we're not asking them to spell any words like that yet. I think it's just a control of the text. But you're right. I think the text over controls, like we could fairly say that to them, but we're trying to control those options right now. Ch.
Consonant digraph, CH.
In final position, trigraph TCH and CH. This is when you're starting to think about your conditions here. Short vowel, vowel team, or a consonant in front of it, like we talked about earlier. J.
J.
Okay, at the end of lesson 62, you'll do G, final D, G, E, and G, E. So you'll have
62.
giraffe, badge, and hinge after lesson 62. And so you can see here, you can cross-reference yourself and be like, I'm not sure if they need to write that. You know what lesson you've taught to. And so this is a good cross-reference. I do rely on these. You know, you can
Yeah.
use your reading deck or you can use your list, but this really does guide you,
Mhm.
if you, especially if you have multiple groups. Ugh.
Vowel, consonant, oh,
Vowel digraph.
vowel digraph,
Almost
sorry.
a vowel consonant digraph.
I know.
Vowel digraph.
And I know now why the kids like it.
Brain dead.
There's just so much verbiage, you know? Ooh.
Ooh, vowel
Vowel
digraph.
digraph.
Oh.
Shh.
Consonant digraph,
Consonant digraph.
SH.
A.
A.
A consonant E.
A.
That's all they've got so far.
Oh, so you don't have the letter A.
After lesson 59. That's when you're gonna go into open syllables.
Wow.
It's gonna be a while. They're gonna over practice VCCV syllable division before you give them a lot of choices, cause they have to have it anchored. Okay, back over here. I.
I consonant E.
Okay, until lesson 59 and 52. 52 is the final Y, like in fly, my, cry. And 59 is the open syllable I, like in title or final. But not until then. O,
O consonant E.
U,
U consonant E.
Wait, go back to I, we had the capital letter I, so we wouldn't put that there?
no, because it's just a word by itself. It's kind of like the obscure A. It's like the
Okay.
Just like when you say you, you, we're not saying an A when it's by itself. It sort of becomes like a learned word kind of thing. Because it's just that one situation. And that's it. You're welcome. See you tomorrow. And that's lesson up to 45.
So you put a dash there, but you say U consonant E.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it could be a UTE, it could be a UPE, a UCE.
But you don't put the consonant symbol because that's, would be confusing because it's different.
Right, because they'll start training themselves to think it's only a C.
Right.
So this has to be just like one consonant in between. Okay, Julia, I'll give you the handouts tomorrow.
Okay, that's fine, thanks very much.
Okay.
Interesting, you think you learned it, but then you go back through.
Does it come together though, like
Oh,
when we
yeah.
work together?
Only on
And
the
then when you
ones
leave
that
and go back, does it,
only on the lessons I've done, and so I feel like we're gonna have to do this again after I've done more lessons, you know?
But then I think you start noticing a pattern and,
Uh-huh.
and you pick up, I think.
yeah.
Laura, have you done this ever before?
No, not ever before, but I have it now 4 30-minute sessions with 2 different groups.
Wow.
So I'm really blessed
I
in
wish you
that
could have
respect.
2-hour sessions with 2 groups.
Yeah,
Are they
instead of
on different
4:30s.
session or
So,
different lessons?
right, and it's 2 groups. So it's 2 groups, but
Oh,
I have
so
them
2
30 minutes in
lessons
the morning and
twice.
30 minutes in the afternoon.
Oh,
So that's
well, that's okay.
yeah, yeah.
So then you're still,
get
you're
that
only doing
together.
4 preps, or 2 preps.
Right.
Which,
Right.
depending on the pace of your group, and it's still like one group in the morning, one at, same in the afternoon.
It's a great
Oh, that's
because
good.
Sebastian, he's a 3rd grader, but I think he was retained someplace in Texas. So he's an older 3rd grader, and he is just helping me just blaze through. He
That's too
just
funny.
he just picks it all up.
Good.
And
That's
you know,
awesome.
he's a little ELL kid, and
Great.
he's gonna have.
I
some
thought
new
you had
tools.
4 separate groups,
No.
and I was like, oh my god, how are you doing that? That's hard.
Now, are those sound pictures pretty easy for you then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the kids just, and like you said, I
I
was
do
really
it once
worried.
every 2 weeks. Oh.
Yeah, the
The
little
keywords.
boy that I was really worried he did
Yes.
have an IEP
Although-
when he was in kindergarten, and he came back and they don't want special ed. And he's just a little guy,
Yeah,
but he's a 2nd
that's the
grader and
hardest part for
smart.
me.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting it.
If I did
Oh,
every
and
day,
he
it
is just
wouldn't
like a
be.
little fireball. He's just
But we
just
get to
cares
it.
Isn't
so
that
much.
fun?
Oh
Once
yeah.
during
I
the
think if you
season.
rope the kids in early on,
week.
they're so willing to work
Yeah.
with you.
Even when I
Right.
Even
practice
if you
at
make a
home.
mistake,
Yeah.
they'll be like, well, don't you get that?
And it's
Just
hard
doesn't
now because
happen.
one little girl, when they're looking at fluency on Dibbles to be the progress, that they looked at her last year for a referral for SPED, and so now she's out of my group, and I'm sure she's not going to make the progress that she did.
That's
with me.
okay. That's okay.
Yeah. And
We
she's
have
such
Gianni who made, I feel, a ton of
Mhm.
progress,
a- Mhm.
but his fluency does not show it.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried yet because you need to get like an amount of information under your belt before
Yeah.
you can do anything fluently with it.
But now
right?
she's out of the Take Flight program. That's the hard part.
Okay.
Now she's in Wilson and it just, but I can't control that. I mean, there's a whole sit team, and I think they believe in the program, but I think after a full year, I think Sebastian will be hopefully the little trophy guy to convince everybody.
Mhm.
And he's just
this
a
is
slow
longer
guy.
intervention, so
Yeah.
they
It's a
need to
long
buy into it.
intervention. You're one individual, so they're gonna prioritize your intervention.
Yeah, I'm
can't,
hoping that
you
they
know.
and because of the whole ELL thing with him, that I don't think they'll try to touch him with trying to
Yeah.
refer him.
If you can hang on to like a group for
Mm-hmm.
the duration of
Yeah.
2 years,
Oh,
It's
I really
amazing.
want to. I mean, I think I would take Sebastian on after school
yeah,
just to see him through, because he'll have so many tools when he's done.
good.
But he's just a slow, methodical little guy. But he's bright too.
So I want to give you this. This is just a glossary of terms that I found in my files. So this is a good place that you would build concept cards from
Oh, good.
if there's anything missing. And it talks about concept cards. So one of those. Do you want to stay there, Laurel?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think I will. It's just been a lot more sitting than I used to.
No worries. And then this is some references for teaching, like things you can use while you're teaching to support your lessons. And so use that as like a master and copy. I don't have all of this electronically because unfortunately a lot of it is just stuff that I built
Mm-hmm.
over the years on previous work computers and didn't bring along with me. So a hard copy is just going to have to suffice until I can make some new ones up. And this is again another, I don't know where, I'd love to know where this review came from. I think this looks like an alphabet phonics type of thing. But it's again some of our definitions, and this will be good information for, I believe, the test in the summer.
Oh, good.
So I want to talk a teeny bit about that just to kind of calm the waters here. I was worried more about the test than I should have been. When I talked with Sarah over the weekend, I'm thinking now spring is like, next month, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
we're all doing great with these observations, and we're rolling and moving and grooving, but as I heard myself say in November and December that it was my intention to prep you for the tests, and I'm like, what am I doing to prep them? And when we talked about it, she said, they're gonna be fine. She said, just continue to give them really good feedback on their observations, answer their questions clearly about the content of the curriculum,
Uh-huh.
she said the Birch book is a good reference, which is what we used when we did the stuff in the summer.
Oh, good.
So I actually have all your work in your file that I've been meaning to give to
Oh,
you.
okay.
When we were up in the other room, I just never brought it with me. But we'll review some of those concepts and things like that. And she said it's not as difficult as the test that I took, and I crammed for it days before with all kinds of stuff. But the definition of dyslexia, you're going to want to know inside out and backwards. So we can toss that up on the board, make sure you have copies of that. The one thing we'll look at on one of the upcoming, probably April or May, right before the test, the last workshops, are the ALTA requirements. ALTA is the Academic Language Therapy Association. That's where the certification will come from. So when we look at that, it'll talk about things like, your professional requirements, confidentiality, what it means to be considered a certified master teacher. Like there's some of that specific stuff that's available on the website, but there will be questions around.
Should we go to the website and look that up? Is that-
You can try. I'm a member. I'm not sure you can access everything that you need. I'm going to ask Sarah to kind of point me into exactly what I should be sharing with you guys. She was really specific as to what it was. But I kind of want to save that for like right before the test.
Okay, that's good.
It doesn't have anything to do with your teaching right now and the content. It's more just like what it means to have this certification. What are you qualified to say and do? That kind of thing. And so the other pieces, details about the assessment, the test, are that we're going to pick one day in June, probably right when school's out, before people start splitting town here.
Okay.
And there will be a proctor, and I don't think I'm probably anywhere on site. I can't be in the bathroom giving you the answers or anything. It'll be a hired proctor. Heather Abram already volunteered to do it.
Okay.
Somebody like that
Uh-huh.
will be here. It'll be like an SAT kind of situation. You'll be administered the test, and then we send it in. Sarah and I both submit your names to ALTA and to Texas Scottish Rite that we are recommending that you take this assessment based on a positive completion of your practicum and your attendance at the workshop. So, if the observations aren't done, then we can't do that. That's why it's, really important that we're doing okay. But as we get busy with bogged down with CSAPs or anything else, it becomes a little bit, I guess I just personally know I can't handle in May to watch like
Right.
4 videos
It's gonna
times
take you a
6
while.
people or whatever. It won't work that way. So as long as we stay on track that way, that's taking care of the practicum piece. And the only responsibility you have for the practicum is to be prepared for your lessons, which you guys are, and to look at the feedback, and then the next time we do an observation, we should see, evidence of you taking that feedback and then honing your practices.
Right.
So Sarah's recommendation to me was that on the feedback forms, she liked my write-ups, but she felt that my feedback was too embedded. She wanted me to, at the end, say, for next lesson or for next
Okay.
observation, do this, this, and this. This is what I want to look for.
Okay.
So I'm going to modify my practices that way. She felt that I just needed to make them more clear so that you're more accountable. Not that you're not, but it's just, she's like, you need to do that service to them and let them know what the 3 things are, or the 2 things, or whatever,
Clear expectations.
Clear expectations.
Does she look at the videos too?
She's looking, I've been giving her what I can. She's following 2 students
Okay.
for me, with me as a trainer.
Sure, good,
But she's not following all of you.
good, okay.
So that's been Lynn and either Ellen or Barbara. I don't remember who we settled on.
Okay.
Because I had videos from everybody. I'm like, here, you just decide, you tell me. And
Right.
I had volunteers, who were
Sure.
fine with it. She's not critiquing the lesson, though. She's critiquing me
Right.
because I'm giving her the lesson and my feedback and the video of the post.
Right.
So it's kind of like this, top-down kind
Sure.
of thing. But and if you want Sarah, if you want a different person too, if you want a little bit of feedback from somebody different, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
It doesn't have to be from me, all five. If you say, you know, I'd really like Sarah to check this one out, she'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
And then I would have her do it first,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would look at it next. So it's sort of that like observation, check error
Sure.
kind of thing.
Will there be a certain level of lesson that we should have been through to best prepare us?
Book
Just
through.
through book
two.
two,
Mhm.
okay.
This is
And
book
does
1
that
and
get
2.
into the comprehension?
I don't know how much questioning there will be on the comprehension. I think it's more related
We're
to.
on target if we can get through book two,
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
Is there a cost for the exam?
I'm sure there is.
Okay,
I don't know what it is,
okay.
and I will try to find that out.
And how long is this certification for? Do you have to renew this every now and again, or?
I've had it since 2004, and basically it's like this honor system type of thing where your expectation is that you continue to professionally develop yourself and you have documentation of that.
Okay.
Now, that might be different for you because I'm not certified at the master teacher level, I'm certified at the academic language therapist level.
Okay.
They didn't have the master teacher level when I did it. I had to
What are we
teach
going
700 hours.
Or what are we going for?
Master teacher,
And that's different?
100 hours, practicum, and the training. Mine was training for 2 summers, 700 hours of teaching. I couldn't take the test for like 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
But that's so great, cause you really did understand
Learn it,
it, I would think.
Right.
Whereas I just feel like one day I've got it, and the next day I don't.
That's all right. That's
But
all
I thought
right.
you had to do it, or you can't do it again. You just have, isn't this our only choice? You either do it or you don't? I thought you had to do it this year.
I think you do.
Yeah.
I think you'll be fine. And she assured me of that. She assured me that it's not as comprehensive as mine because of that. It's more based on this curriculum, the content of it, 1 year's worth of practice, and they recognize that. It's not going to be the same assessment as someone who's taught 700 hours and trained for
Right.
15 days.
Didn't you say something about how they'd send you a practice test?
When we submit your names, probably late May, if we're going to try to go for like a early to mid-June test date, which I would recommend, as soon as possible, well, it's all up here, we'll submit your names, and then with your, you'll get a packet from Alta that says, here's a practice exam. So we might, I wish I could get a hold of one ahead of time, so I could say, well, we'll do a study group, or you guys will be fine, just read this. My recommendation to you is just stay focused on your lessons, asking the questions you're doing about the curriculum, staying anchored in the curriculum. If you have free time and you want to, thumb through the Birch book, if you don't quite understand vowel digraphs and you want to know more, go to the Birch book and read more. But
Should we go through the workbook with that book? Remember we had some of the lessons?
think about how you did that the first time. Was it hard, or was it kind of like, all right, I'm focused now on vowel digraphs, so I'm going to be able to do this. If you found that pretty easy, and you were able to just kind of put your head in that page and do it, you're fine. And you'd be able to do it and be like, oh,
Right.
It might be a good little self-assessment to know how much more comfortable you are with that information, but it's not necessary. I think the practice that you're doing with kids is the best thing that you can be doing right now, and just keeping your head in the game and, trying to, some of you that are doing it sporadically, it's harder, it's more demanding on you
I bet it is.
to put it away and have to go to something different. I mean,
Yeah.
I do this all day, every day.
Yeah.
So, it's a luxury, but it's also like overkill at this point.
Sure.
But it's supported me in becoming so internal with it. So
Sure.
you don't have that luxury all the time. But if you're every day like thinking, coding, reading, doing ISD,
It must be
doing
great.
phonemic awareness, then
Not
you're
like-
gonna get it. It flows.
Yeah. So, Laura, this is just a thought, so, when they take the test and there's a proctor, do you think there could be 2 different testing in places if there was a proctor in Meeker?
That would be an additional cost.
Oh, okay, all right, then don't worry about it.
So
I really don't mind the drive, but I was just thinking, that would be easy.
I
My daughter
know.
graduates this year.
And we could set that up if you were willing to incur that cost. I
Yeah,
can tell you
right.
that the district will incur the cost of the proctor here.
Yeah.
It's
right.
one of those things,
No,
but
well,
maybe
come-
your administration would go ahead
How
and,
long is
No,
this
not
test?
at this time of budget cuts, I wouldn't even.
probably not.
No, and I really don't mind the
Probably
cuts.
I
not.
heard 3 hours.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
the
it's gonna
reason I
come
thought,
down to that.
'cause I was sure my boss would do.
Yeah.
That's not worth it,
Yeah,
so.
How long is the test?
I don't know.
Oh,
Mine
right.
took me a couple hours,
Seriously.
but I don't think it's gonna be that long. Mine had a multiple choice and some situations and, an essay about some research, I think. I should try to dig it up. But I also don't wanna scare you because she's already told me that my
We're
test
already
is far
scared.
different, so if I pull out this thing that's like, and, yeah, I don't remember if I even got it back. I mean, it was a long time ago. And I know that I passed and I was like, shh, okay.
So how many people are gonna do this now?
Well, it's dwindling because the demand, it's, you know, you just have to have, hopefully you're all logging
You
your
think we're
hours,
on-
right? You've
we're
got
on-
some way to
I've
say
got some way of doing
that,
it,
you
yeah.
know, a schedule or
Yeah.
your planner or something that
What
you
if
can
we
compile.
can't make the 100 hours?
How close are you gonna get?
I had added it up, I mean, in looking at it, it looked like, and not counting these seminars, can we count the seminars?
I believe so, but I have to get the word from
Cause I
Sarah.
might need to add extra kids somehow or something, because I did it for the whole year, not counting any cancellations, which was a little bit, there will be some now with CSAC,
Worst
I
comes to
guess.
worst, one of the things that can
Okay,
happen
it's
is you
only
can
like
come in
60.
here and just do some of my groups if we need a couple hours or.
Cause I might be able to do some
Tape.
extras and, oh,
I mean, I'm personally not gonna be like, okay, you got 98 hours, you need 2 more.
I think it's gonna be short.
You
I'll
know.
push it.
I think we can, you know, I know who's doing it,
Right.
you know, and I know because of the questions you're asking.
Mhm.
I just personally cannot certify someone, and I know that you all understand this, who, you know, hasn't really practiced it. Because you're gonna get a certification and the stamp from Sarah and I, and it reflects upon Sarah's school and her training as well, that, okay, this person's practicing Texas Scottish Rite, take flight, but if the feedback comes back that it's really not that as trained, then that's a problem for us. You know, so it's just a matter of validity. You know, and being my first year, I'm really focused on that because it's important to me that,
Sure, you
you
just
know.
have to trust it.
yeah. So, I'm gonna hold off on scheduling that date until next time.
Oh, I should
just
be
because-
fine. Our Meeker graduation, I think is, that last weekend in May, and just as my daughter graduates.
Ours is the 29th, cause I have a seniors.
and it's-
We're in school until like the 4th.
Oh,
I
and
guess
we're
my
not.
thoughts are like, you know, the beginning of the week following or something like that.
That would be
So we will
just
have our
fine.
report cards done.
Yeah, like
Okay.
so that you're not bogged down,
That's-
you
I think
know, like
that's
you
great.
shouldn't need to be worrying about this, like the dust could settle for a couple days and maybe you'll have, you know, the weekend or a couple days to just
Look over
refresh your
stuff.
memories or give me a call and be like, you know, talking about something in the study guide you
Right.
wanna talk about. You know, if we wanna do like an emergency, like let's meet and study
Mm-hmm.
kinda thing, we can do that. I'll do, you know, whatever I can do to get you
Right.
prepped for it. I think when we get the samples, I think that'll be really telling for us. It's been so long since I took it, I can't even imagine how different it's gonna be or how to prep you as if it were their test, cause I've never seen it.
Is it, you don't know maybe how much you do know, I mean, like you were going through this and looking through and you just, it was
True.
natural for you and I'm like, how does she know there's nothing in there? I mean, you know, it's just, it was fast and
Yeah.
it's not ingrained
That's right.
at all
That's
for
right,
us.
yeah. And so, you know, when you're taking the test, you'll stop and think about each question, and that's okay. It's alright. So we have our next one on the 22nd.
Mhm.
Is it? Is it a Monday again?
It is. You know, we could just go into March. How are you guys feeling? Like we've got March, April, May. That leaves 3 more.
Mhm.
We knew that we would be canceling one and we haven't. I'm only making up for the January last week that was canceled.
I
And
think
we
we
could-
should try to have it on the 22nd because it gets harder and harder at the end.
So maybe
It
that would
is.
be the one, okay.
And what would you go on
March,
next?
it's just like school is almost over
Well, that's
in
the
March.
thing, I mean, I'm, at this point, and it's, as Sarah said, like, you shouldn't be teaching them new things, you should just be fine tuning their practices.
Okay,
You should be answering their questions or modeling some things that seem fuzzy for them. So, in book 1 and book 2. So I didn't prep anything to say, oh, when you get to this lesson, here's the new information. We're kinda through that.
okay. So you would tape it, and so if I didn't come, you know, I missed tonight's SIP meeting, no problem, Jason was fine with that.
Right.
You know, I'm not
Right.
sure. I hate to
No,
push
it's
the,
it's an option and it's logistical about what we've had to do and
right,
you know, you'll take the time to
Mhm.
watch it and you'll
Right,
spend as much
absolutely.
time and
Yeah.
you know,
mm-hmm,
so
So
And
it's
the roads are gonna be better
22nd
next
Monday.
yes, it's 3 weeks from today. And then I don't have March on the calendar or April or May.
when
But
is your
it's-
spring break?
3rd week of March, 20 something.
Yeah, I think that's ours too, that works out. When are you guys doing CSAPs? The 8th to the 12th
22nd.
and the 15th to the 19th, we are.
No, some of the CSAPs are this month,
Yeah,
February.
the 3rd grade is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Right.
Coming
third,
up,
fourth,
like next
fifth
week.
is,
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting worried about. That's why I'm thinking you better use the flip.
Cause they're gonna be
Tomorrow
canceling their
on the-
classes, but are they gonna cancel or?